What's up, friends? Happy Tuesday morning. Welcome to Tuesday Television with Big Dub. Hey! And what I wanted to do in this is just talk to you about the things I'm watching on television. It will be for the previous week. So you're watching this on Tuesday. Sunday is the big night of television, for me at least. And so that gives me Monday to kind of digest and think about, and if I missed anything, get caught up and figure out my thoughts. And so it will be from the previous Monday to Sunday, the previous full week of television, what I'm watching. This first episode will probably be a little bit longer than the others because we're going to set some groundwork about what I'm watching and that kind of thing. And you'll see the format. The beginning here, no spoilers. I guess you could consider light spoilers if you haven't watched a show at all and I mention the main character by name and you're like, oh my goodness, now I know the main character's still alive in season 3. If you consider that a spoiler, you probably can't watch any television reviews or anything. I don't consider that a spoiler. There will be a spoiler section at the very end after I kind of go through things, and I'll usually only talk about 1 or 2 shows in the spoiler section. So let's start first with what am I currently watching. And by currently watching, it means I am current. It is a show that is on right now. It's on the air right now. And it is, I'm up to date. I've watched the most recent episode that is air. That's the first category we'll talk about. Then we're going to talk about things that are currently on the air. I want to watch, but I'm behind a little bit. And I don't mean way behind, but I'm just behind a little bit. A couple episodes. I'm in the current season. Then there are things that are active and out there that I haven't started watching, but I have an interest in. We're going to talk about those. Then things that are on the horizon. They've got a release date. They're coming out, whether it's a next season or a new show. And then the last thing is things that are in production. So things I'm excited for, but there's no release date necessarily yet. Now, each week we're not going to talk about all of those, only things that are net new or if something newsworthy happens. And then another category would be things I'm currently binging, which is nothing right now. I'm not currently binging anything, but if I do start binging something, especially if I've never watched it before, we might cover it here. So let's start with things I'm currently watching. We're going to start with the other category, and these are going to be ranked in how much I enjoyed the episode in each category. So there's 2 things in other. That basically means not drama, not comedy. So it could be reality or documentary or true crime, something like that. There's only 2 things I'm currently watching actively in that. They are both on Disney Plus. One of them is a Disney show. The other one's a Nat Geo show. The one I'm enjoying very much, the show I'm enjoying the most on Disney Plus, as a matter of fact, is the Imagineering story. And it just had its 3rd episode. And it is a story about the Imagineers who Walt Disney, he kind of coined that the Imagineers were the engineers of imagination that would create the things of Walt Disney, create the rides, create the experiences, the creative geniuses behind the Disney Corporation. And the first episode was about the creation of Disneyland in California. Second episode about the creation of Disney World, specifically the Magic Kingdom, and a little bit on Epcot in Orlando. And then the 3rd episode is around Disneyland Paris and then the MGM Studios in Orlando. So, and there's also tons of stuff about how they build different rides, Space Mountain and Splash Mountain, Thunder Mountain, all these different things. And it's just fascinating. It's fascinating. It's a very documentarian, very well produced. I'd recommend that if you're interested in Disney at all. The second one is the show called The World According to Jeff Goldblum. It's like a 20-minute show, maybe like 27 minutes. Imagineering story is full hours, sometimes a little bit over even. So it's been the 3rd episode of The World According to Jeff Goldblum. It was on tattoos. Then there was one on sneakers and ice cream. The first 3. It's just a peculiar thing. It's Jeff Goldblum kind of going around learning about the origins of something, whether it was tennis shoes or ice cream or tattoos. The experts in it, he usually gets to create his own thing. It's just a fun, light watch. He's such an interesting guy to look at. So I'd recommend that as well, especially it's kind of good background noise if you want. It'll make you laugh. He's an interesting dude. So, comedy, I don't watch a lot of comedy television shows. I don't know why that is. I never really have watched that many. You'll see here I also don't watch a lot of network television shows, meaning ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, like over the air. Most of the stuff I watch is on cable or on premium or streaming services. And I don't know if I don't like a lot of cable because, or a lot of network and a lot of comedy specifically because they don't go anywhere. Like I watch TV to like stimulate my mind a lot of times and take me on a journey. And the mindless stuff I watch is more documentary or things of that nature. So comedies don't have a big space in where I do watch some. The two I do currently watch, Goldbergs. I love the Goldbergs. It's surprising. It's a sitcom that I've been watching for a long time. It's because it's the era I grew up in, and all the episodes are very much things I remember. And usually every episode has a moment that makes you feel good about your family. So I like that. This episode was their Thanksgiving episode. Again, no spoilers. It's a good one. It's kind of about Murray, the father, and his dad, and they've had an on and off again relationship through the show. And then there's a little fun story with the uncle. It's pretty good. It's exactly what you think a Goldberg's Thanksgiving episode is going to be. The second comedy I watch is Silicon Valley. That's on HBO. It has only got 2 episodes left in the show, and it'll end. It is a show. I think it's a very niche show. I think it's funny. It's from Judge, creators of Beavis and Butthead, which is a weird thing to say, but it's not like that. It does have some silly humor. But it's so much like my work in a lot of ways. The things they joke about are things I deal with in work. So it makes me laugh because that's not an area that I see touched on a lot. There's not a lot of jokes about like agile methodology and scrums and sprints in most of anything. So I like it that they touch on that. This episode is kind of building toward whatever the final story is going to be with Gavin and Richard and a lot of stuff going on. If you haven't watched that show, I don't think I'd recommend anyone binging it. It's just silly humor. It was a lot better when TJ Miller was on the show, but he left several seasons ago for, I don't know, he seems to have had some challenging situations over the last couple years. But I enjoyed that show. I watch it when it comes on Sunday night, but it's very niche. So if you work in the IT space or in consulting or business management or that type of stuff, you may like it. So the big thing I watch is dramas. So we're going to talk about the 4 dramas I currently watch. Again, these are in order of enjoyment. So I enjoyed Goldberg's more than Silicon Valley. I enjoyed The Imagineering Story more than Jeff Goldblum. So the drama that I enjoyed the most this week, Mr. Robot. That's probably going to be the answer for the remaining 4 or 5 episodes it has left. It's, in my opinion, best show on television right now. It's a very low-watched show, surprisingly. A lot of people don't know what it is. I think for a lot of people, it's just way too intelligent, maybe, highbrow. I don't know what the right word is. Highbrow is not the right word. It's intense. It's very smart. It's very confusing. Similar to Legion, a show that ended recently. But it's wonderful. It's got some of the best directing, cinematography, and acting, bar none. This was... I'll talk a little bit about this in the spoiler section. That's going to be saved more for The Walking Dead. But very tense hour of television. A lot of focus on Dom and Darlene, which was awesome and very intense on their story that's going on right now. And then focus on Elliot and the fallout of the events of last episode, which was the best episode of television this year. And the vulnerability that's going on with him. And it's just really good. Carly Chaikin, Christian Slater, Rami Malek are wonderful actors. Sam Esmail is the showrunner, is incredibly creative. This is a show I would recommend you binging. There's probably only been... It's in its 4th season, and each season only has 10 or 12-ish episodes. There's maybe 40 episodes to watch, and you can get current. I think it'll end right around Christmas. So this show's wonderful, and it is in peak form right now. I think it won the Golden Globe for Best Show in its first season. Rami Malek has won an Emmy for Best Lead Actor for this show. It's a show about hackers. Let's put it that way. It's kind of the easiest way to talk about it. It's a show about hackers. But I love this show very, very much. And if you like complex storytelling with reveals that pay off many episodes, seasons later, and something that drives you in this kind of event-style television, Mr. Robot's the one. The show, and that comes on USA, by the way. The number 2 drama I enjoyed this week was The Morning Show on Apple's, I don't remember what that's called, Apple TV Plus? Apple Plus? Apple TV? I don't know. Too many people using Plus. The Morning Show, which, if you're not familiar with the show, it's, I think, 5 or 6 episodes in. I think 6 now. And it is based on a lot of the stuff that happened with Matt Lauer and the news and the Me Too stuff and the allegations and misconduct by people in the workplace. And that's a hard topic to talk about, right? Like, that's not the, let me hurry up and watch that. But I recommend you watch it. It's very, very good. It takes several episodes to get going. And in fact, I would argue it's still not all the way there. They're doing a great deal of world building, of character development, of teaching you who these characters are. It's got a stud cast, right? With Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Steve Carell. I mean, big time. And they're paying for that cast. You know, these are home run hitters on television. And they all have a lot to do. Very meaty, chewy scenes. If you like shows like The Newsroom, if you like shows like The West Wing, it's that type of show, like an old Aaron Sorkin show where there's lots of dialogue, there's lots of walking and talking, there's lots of acting. Not a lot of action, basically none. Not a lot of comedy or gags or other things. It's a lot of acting. It's a lot of actors acting and directing, cinematography. This episode kind of went away from some of the main story. They were on site. They were covering the California fires. And Jennifer Aniston has an incredible amount to do with a complex kind of grieving storyline that she's wonderful. And I think this is the first time in a couple episodes we see the story start to dash forward to what the show's really going to be as it continues. So really, really, really phenomenal episode. So I would recommend The Morning Show to you. It's on Apple. I think you can watch the first 3 episodes for free without even a trial or anything, I think. That may not be true, but I think it's true. Third episode is the one we'll talk the most about in the spoiler section in a little while. The Walking Dead. It was the mid-season finale for this season, for season 10, right? I think it's season 10. Mid-season finale. I will just say this season's been the best season of The Walking Dead in 5-6 years. I can't, probably since season 4, I think, maybe 5. In many years. Angela Kang is the showrunner that took over last year, maybe halfway through last year. She has brought new life to the show. It's become much more psychological, much more horror. It's more traditional horror, but thrilling, psychological. I don't love horror, like dark horror. This is more in a psychological aspect. The Whisperers are fantastic. Samantha Morton's playing Alpha perfectly. And she's terrifying as a villain. She's probably the most terrifying villain in all of the Walking Dead history, on the show at least. And really good. So this episode there was a huge moment at the end of last episode. This episode deals with the aftermath of that, has some very emotional moments and a big surprise at the end. Walking Dead, if you haven't started watching Walking Dead, you're probably not going to start now. But for the people that used to watch Walking Dead, the show was the biggest show on television for many years. And it's probably only got 25-30% of its previous audience. If you left during like the gore of All Out War and the Negan era, or some of the tricks that they pulled on the fans with the fake out deaths and stuff, if that's what drove you away, I just started episode 1 here, or go back so a the most major character left The Walking Dead. The actor wanted to go do something else last season. It was everywhere. I hope that's not a spoiler, but it was everywhere. You could pick up there because there's a time jump right after that character leaves and watch like the last 10 or so episodes total. And it's like a whole new show that's just set in the Walking Dead universe. So I would recommend checking that out if you left the show. If you liked it, but you left because you felt cheated by some of the things they were doing. If you just didn't like it, that's fine. But I love it. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a Walking Dead fan. One of my very favorite worlds and stories. I love ensemble casts. That's the thing I'm a big fan of is ensemble casts. My favorite television show ever is Lost. Big ensemble cast. So I would recommend trying to get back on the Walking Dead train if you used to be on it. Then the fourth drama that I'm watching right now, current on, the one I enjoyed the least, which is, not saying anything. Those three shows are all good, and I enjoyed this. But it's The Mandalorian that is on Disney Plus. And I actually watched all 3 episodes this week. I hadn't watched any until this week. And as you know, if you watch the channel, Star Wars is more of a tertiary fandom for me. It's nothing that I have to be the first to do or anything like that. And it just hadn't become appointment viewing for me. I don't really know why. It wasn't like something I had to watch. So I picked it up. I actually wasn't even spoiled on I can't spoil this. The quote-unquote Baby Yoda, the child Baby Yoda, that's everywhere all over the internet right now. Except Disney's now issuing takedown notices of it. But I actually had not seen that when I started watching it. So that wasn't a spoiler for me, surprisingly. But for the whole world, it's been a spoiler. So The Mandalorian is great fan service. It's great if you love Star Wars. You get lots of Star Wars moments. It looks beautiful. Directed well, good cinematography, great effects. The armor looks fantastic on The Mandalorian. Lots of cool stuff. I wish it was longer. And again, it's playing in the prestige drama area. And it's, in my opinion, not a prestige drama show. Just because it doesn't fit some of those check boxes. It's more of a background show for myself. In that probably the biggest thing is their episodes are short, but they feel slow, and the plot is very predictable so far. Now, hopefully that'll change. Obviously, there was the one reveal, the quote unquote spoiler that nobody saw coming. But the plot, generally speaking, is okay. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. We know that's all that's going to happen, and one of those things happens in an episode. And that's it. Not much else happens. So I wish there was more. But again, for the fan service side, and you're in the Star Wars world, and it looks cool and it's great. Yes, that's awesome. I like all of that very much for when I'm in my Star Wars mood. But I think the biggest drawback, and maybe this will change, is they cast Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian, who was wonderful in Game of Thrones as Oberyn. And we don't get to see him act with his face because he's always got the mask on. And obviously that's a plot thread, whether he'll always have the mask on or not. But I remember a lot of people were critical of Tom Hardy's casting as Bane in The Dark Knight Rises because you took one of the greatest actors in the world and you covered him up. But at least with him, you could see his eyes. And so much acting is in the faces and the eyes, is in the cheeks and the mouth. If you think about it, if you're trying not to cry when you're talking to someone, or you're trying to not let them make you laugh, what do? You turn and look away. When you don't want emotions to happen, you turn and look away. Because the eyes bring the emotion out. And we don't get to see that with him. And they're doing a lot to try to give him emotions through other things with musical cues. The score has been great. I love his kind of Mandalorian theme. And then when they had him in the flashbacks, then it became a whole orchestral score. That was great. So, I think that's my biggest drawback with it, is I wish I could see his face for it to be considered a prestige level show. In terms of just a fun show, perfect. It's great. But it's not going to ever touch Mr. Robot of the Morning Show for me, unless we can get some meatier acting going on. So those are where I'm at with the stuff that's going on right now. Things I am not current on, but I want to. I hope to be over the next couple weeks. I've only watched the first episode of Watchmen on HBO, and I've only watched the first episode of C, the Jason Momoa show on Apple, where everybody in the world is blind. I enjoyed both first episodes of those. I just haven't had a chance to come back to them. So I don't have much to say about those yet, other than I think they look good. C looks fantastic on a 4K TV. Apple's really spared no expense there on the cinematography. Don't got much else to say. Things I haven't started, but I want to watch, or I'm at least interested in. The one I'll talk the most about is His Dark Materials. This is based on some Philip Pullman trilogy of novels. It was also the Golden Compass movie is inspired by that work. I don't know a ton about this series, but I know the trailer had McAvoy, who played Charles Xavier in the most recent X-Men movies. Ruth Wilson, who is fantastic on Luther. Fantastic. So that immediately gets me interested. And it has a polar bear with armor on it. I think a lot of companies are trying to find the next Game of Thrones. You'll hear me talk about that a couple times. I think this is a big one. I think this is on HBO. Yeah, it's on HBO. They're trying to find the next Game of Thrones. I've heard reviews are mixed. I don't go by reviews much, critical reviews. I read them sometimes, but I find that critics don't like the same things I like. So, it is what it is. I don't know much about it, but I'm going to try to watch it. Evil is a show on CBS, the only other network show on this list. The reason it's on my list is I love Michael Emerson. I loved him in Lost. I loved him in Person of Interest. I think he's one of the most amazing actors, especially facial, what we've been talking about, on the planet. And he's in this role, and it seems to be similar to some of his other roles. The reason I haven't watched it, to be honest, is it seems to be very dark, supernatural, horror. I mean, the title of it is Evil. And I try not to put things in my mind that are dark, that are evil. And you say, well, you watched The Walking Dead. That's true, but that's not the same thing as demonic possession and those kinds of things. And, things that you can struggle with that can cause you to mentally wrestle with some stuff. On the dark side of stuff, I just try not to put into my spirit. I've had problems with that in the past, so I try to stay away from it. So that's really why I haven't started watching it. I think it's already 8 or 9 episodes in. I hear it's pretty good. I'll try to watch it and see, but I'm just cautious. But Michael Emerson, I love. The third one is on Apple, For All Mankind. That's if the space race had never ended, like during the Cold War time. I hear it's pretty good. That's the extent of what I know. I bet it looks good. I have an interest. I'll probably check out an episode. Not much else to say about that. Now, on the horizon, things that are immediately coming out that I am interested in. This week on Apple is a show called The Servant. It is from M. Night Shyamalan, who, early in the decade, in the 2000s, shocked us with a few movies and then had a bunch of duds. There's basically not much about this. There's the trailer where it seems a couple has a baby in their house and something weird's going on. This also could be in that world of dark, and I'm not sure about that, like I just talked about. But the trailer is strangely intriguing. Is it really a baby? Is it a doll? I don't know. I'm going to check that out this week. Upcoming on the CW, that's network. The Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover for DC. I'm excited about that. We're in the final season of Arrow. I fell off. I used to watch all the Arrowverse shows, and now there's just too many shows. So I think it was when Black Lightning was added, and that made it 5 shows. And now there's 6 because there's Batwoman. It was just too many. It was every night was one of these shows, and they're network shows, which means they come on 20 plus times a year. So that's 100 episodes in 1 year of this universe versus, Mr. Robot might be on for 8 or 10. And it's just too much. I don't have that much time. My work's too busy, travel, I can't do it. And so about a season and a half, 2 seasons ago, I just stopped watching all of them. I love Flash and Arrow. I may pick those back up. I may watch Arrow's final season, which is going on right now. But I'm definitely going to watch this crossover, even though I'm not current on any of the shows. And I don't know if it involves Batwoman. I think it has Superman in it. I'm sure it involves Arrow and Flash and Supergirl. I don't think Black Lightning's in it. I don't know if Batwoman's in it. I don't know if the Legends of Tomorrow are in it. But the promo for it has been good, and it's a great storyline from DC Comics that I like. So that's coming up. December 8th is when that comes out. Is when it starts. And I don't know how many nights it is. It's usually like 4 nights, like one of each episode. Something like that, maybe 3. Speaking of next Game of Thrones, on Netflix, December 20th, is The Witcher coming out. Henry Cavill as Geralt in the Bath. That comes from a book series that was a video game series and comics and lots of stuff. I've played the most recent Witcher a fair amount. But again, it's looking for the next Game of Thrones. The trailer looks really good. They've already renewed it for a second season, I believe. So I'm interested in that. That's December 20th. That's the thing I think they hope people are watching over Christmas. Netflix has a bunch of good movies upcoming too, by the way. Check those out. Further down the horizon, the return of Better Call Saul for the next season is February 23rd. If you watched Breaking Bad and you liked Breaking Bad and you don't watch Better Call Saul, I don't know why. Better Call Saul is excellent. It's a prequel to Breaking Bad. In fact, I think in some areas it's better than Breaking Bad, specifically the way that they can round the story out and make it blend. And the acting is just, top notch. So check that out. That's coming February 23rd. March 17th is the return of Billions. Billions is probably closer to Silicon Valley, and that's a very niche show. It's a high-level drama about hedge fund managers, traders in New York City, and like the district attorney trying to catch them. That's a decent synopsis. I love Damian Lewis. I loved him on Homeland. Homeland's coming back too. That's another one that should be on my list. Its final season is very close, I think in January. But Maggie Siff, Paul Giamatti, Damian Lewis, they're all excellent. That comes back March 17th. It always has a great twist. That show's funnier than some of the others, and it's also weird. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens. But it's kind of a cat and mouse game, but instead of traditional crime and police, it's hedge fund manager that maybe is bending the rules and district attorney. Great performances there. And then no confirmed date, but we think around April, probably filling the old Game of Thrones slot, will be the return of Westworld, which has been gone forever. Season 3, I think this season's entitled The New World. It's got Aaron Paul, Jesse from Breaking Bad in it, and they're out of the park. So that's awesome. Now, if you haven't watched Westworld, Westworld's closer to Mr. Robot in that it is a high-powered drama, big actors, big scenes. It looks beautiful, great directing, and it will confuse the heck out of you. And I love it. It's just great. Obviously based on books. So I would recommend checking out Westworld. Now, in production, stuff that has no date at all. Of course, I'm ready for the Amazon Lord of the Rings show with young Aragorn. I've tried to not pay attention. I know it's been renewed for a second season. I think it had to be contractually. But I'm excited for that. I have no idea when it's coming out. And then more of the recent bigger news. That's on Amazon, the Lord of the Rings show. Westworld's on HBO. The other HBO show, they canceled the one Game of Thrones prequel, which was going to be based on like The Long Night, I think, and the Children of the Forest, the First Men, all way back, and White Walkers maybe, and they canceled it. I guess the pilot was bad. Game of Thrones itself notoriously has a really bad pilot that had to have a lot of changes. This got canceled. But interestingly, the same day, they picked up for a full season run without seeing a pilot, show called House of the Dragon, which will be based on the book Fire and Blood that Martin wrote about the 150-year Targaryen Empire, the Targaryen Civil War before the show. So that's interesting. That book's good. I think the story will be good. It means you get dragons, which everybody's going to want on that. I'm also interested that Ryan Condal, who is a showrunner on Colony, and Miguel Sapochnik, who directed Battle of the Bastards, who directed Hard Home, and who directed Long Night, I think maybe some others, on the first run of Game of Thrones, are the co-showrunners. That's an interesting duo. I liked Colony for the first couple seasons, and then it faded out for me. The first season of Colony was really good. So I'm excited for House of Dragon, of course, big Game of Thrones fan. So now, that is a rundown of what I'm watching on TV, what I'm excited for. When we go forward, I'm just going to talk about what I'm current on and what happened on this week's episode. And I'm not going to go through all those other things unless there's a new addition, right? So something new comes out I'm excited for. Some of these will move around, etc. That's the way this format will go. I hope you like that. Now, spoilers. This is going to be spoilers for the Walking Dead episode that just aired and a little bit for Mr. Robot that just aired. If you don't want to be spoiled on the most recent episodes of those, stop watching here. Go watch the episodes, and you can come back and watch it. Are you ready? Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Touch it. All right. First, talk about just a little bit about Mr. Robot, because I'm sure I'm in the spoiler section. I'm going to talk a lot about Mr. Robot for the next few weeks because it's coming to its series finale. And Walking Dead, last night was the mid-season finale, so it's over until February. I think it comes back, February 23rd it comes back. So we won't talk about Walking Dead for the next while. So just briefly about Mr. Robot. The lady, I don't remember her name, but the lady that Dom kills, the taxidermy lady, that was such a fulfilling death that Dom got out of that situation and killed her. She was horrible. Very happy to see her get killed. That was a great scene. Deegan, the Irishman, like seeing that they had cut a deal. The intensity of the acting in that series was great. And really drove the episode forward. But then the other thing I want to mention is the fragility and the vulnerability Rami Malek put in Elliot after learning of the sexual abuse last episode, which last episode is one of the most amazing episodes of television ever. And I wish I was doing this last week because I'd love to talk more about it. He was great. And then him talking to like child Elliot personality. So if you remember several episodes ago, there's the scene in the room where child Elliot is talking to the mom and they're waiting on them to get there. And he's like, Mr. Robot. And she says, and the child says, no, the other one, which I think is us. I think we are the other personality. That's still not really been touched on since then. But this is the first time we've really seen Elliot interacting with the child personality, I think. At least to this degree, where he follows him in the museum, he gets the key, and we learn about, I think the quote is, it's how we kept from the monsters. The key is so the monsters would not, the lock or key is so the monsters couldn't get in. And Child Elliot is teaching modern Elliot, Mr. Robot wasn't created out of a bad thing. He was created out of a good thing. He was helping him. He wasn't the monster. He was trying to protect him from the monsters. And that was an emotional journey to go on. And then the final scene where Christian Slater re-enters as Mr. Robot, and Elliot apologizes for putting him on timeout. And then he breaks down. He says, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. And he cries into Christian Slater's arms. And Christian Slater, earlier says, I'm not your father. Whew, man, that is some meaty stuff going on in those scenes. And Mr. Robot's awesome. But this is not a Mr. Robot spoiler discussion. We'll have lots of those. But if you're watching that, whoo. Now, Walking Dead spoiler stuff. The big thing here, of course, is Sadiq being killed, and Avi Nash was just fantastic as Sadiq. And dealing with the PTSD, it's really a shame to see him go because he was growing on everybody, I think, doing such a wonderful job. But Dante killing him, and I will say that Juan Cardenas, also wonderful in that Dante role, even though it was a short role. We get the cold open where we see how Alpha got Dante infiltrated into our friends, into Alexandria. And that was a nice little scene. But then we get Rosita catching Dante, figuring out that something's happened, and killing him. You got a zombie Sadiq going for the baby. I mean, how intense was all of that? And then you felt so bad for Rosita because her maternal instinct, she's got to protect her baby. She has to kill a guy that she thought was her friend and protect her baby, then kill her baby's father as a zombie. All in like a minute. Like, you think about how much mentally she has to be going through when all that's over and she starts crying. Man, it's tough. And so then you get the later fallout where everybody's hitting Dante, which is great. But then eventually you get to Gabriel having the reckoning with Dante and talking about Sadiq was his friend and all the pain he's put Rosita through and all this. And you see Gabriel finally turn completely, and he just kills him and brutalizes him. And that was an important thing for Gabriel. Father Gabriel has tried to hold on to his ethics and his morality and what he thought was good for so long. And this is finally the moment that did it. And that scene was pretty brutal. So a lot going on there that I really enjoyed all of that. Then you've got stuff with Michonne. Virgil's a character I'm not familiar with. I don't remember that name from the comics. I don't think it's in the video games. I think it's a net new character who's like at a military island. And Michonne is going to go to the island and get, a nuclear bomb and come drop it on the herd or fly a plane back? Missiles? I don't know. I think obviously this is Denai being written out. As we all know, Denai is leaving The Walking Dead this season. I don't think she has very many episodes left. So this is probably her storyline that's going to get her out of there. Maybe she's going to stay there. Maybe something's going to happen to her there. It seemed like her goodbye to Judith. So I don't know, but this seems to be her final storyline. And you don't realize Michonne's not been on this season hardly at all. But the big ending sequence is the important of this, where you get the ongoing Daryl and Carol, where their roles are reversed, and Carol's kind of erratic, and you can't trust her, and Daryl's trying to ground her. She sees Alpha, she chases, and they fall in a trap. They're in this cave where the Walker herd is. And what's going to happen? And we get the mid-season finale, and it's going to come back in 3 months. So it's was a good episode. It was fulfilling as a mid-season finale. We got the death of Dante. We didn't have a storyline where he got away with it and nobody knows he's a spy. We immediately dealt with that. Everybody's going to be in a tizzy, so to speak. And then we have some nice cliffhangers going forward. I thought they did a really good job on this mid-season finale. The three big questions, I think. Where's Lydia? What's she doing? When she ran away after she felt used by Carol. Number two, what's up with Negan and the Whisperers? That's probably question number one. Is he on their side? Is he not on their side? I will not talk about things that have happened in the comics. Because the show again and again has shown they're not going to do what the comics did. Dante was not a Whisperer spy. Dante made it all the way to the end of the comic series and was like this great diplomat and steward of good faith for the Hilltop. So obviously that's not the route he went. So it doesn't necessarily even matter. But also, if it does matter, it could be spoilers, and I don't want to spoil people that haven't read the comics. But the Negan and the Alpha and Beta and the Whisperers and all that is a story that's in the comics. I don't know if they're going to go the same way. And then will Maggie return? When will Maggie return? Maggie Cohen has said she's coming back to the show. I think they've teased she may appear in this season. I think it's more for next season once Denai leaves. But how's she going to return? That's a question I have. I think she'll show up before the end of this season in some type of support capacity during the Whisperer War. That's just my opinion. So I like the Walking Dead finale. I think the acting has been top notch. Again, Angela Kang has killed it as showrunner. Directing's been great. We have lots of interesting different types of scenes and shots. Creative with the zombies, lots of fight scenes. Like if you remember the very beginning, I think it's the first scene of the whole season where they're doing like their training out on the beach at Oceanside. All that I like. So anyway, that's my Tuesday television for this week. And hopefully you enjoyed it. I know it's kind of long. It'll be a little shorter going forward. Some weeks it might be very short. Some weeks it might be much longer. I don't know how much television's even coming on next week this week with it being Thanksgiving, but we'll see. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See you next time.